Okay, let's talk a little bit about game economies, earning and spending. As I mentioned in the previous lecture, economy refers to any kind of progression, any kind of earning and spending in the game. So, what do I mean by economy? All games have at least one economy, and I will tell you what it is later on. But an economy refers to any system where a player can earn something and spend something. So some kind of like what we might call a currency. So earning and spending is the core loop of any game economy. And one of the secrets to an engaging gameplay is to give players lots of small but meaningful choices. So one of the ways that you can do that is by creating a number of economies and allowing the player to ask, how will I earn X and how will I spend X? So I have a decision that I can make in how I choose to spend my time, earning, whatever currency is kind of interesting to me at that time. And I also have some decisions to make, some little micro decisions about how I'm going to spend that, how I'm going to grow my character in various ways. So not all economies are currency based, although some are. So the biggest examples are experience points, or XP, in-game currency, which is sometimes called soft currency, real world currency, which is sometimes called hard currency, so that's actually spending money to progress. Tradable items or cards, so anytime you can trade with another player, and point pools of really any kind. So as some practical examples, souls in Dark Souls are used for both XP and currency. So you earn souls from, almost every interaction in their game is combat based because their pillar is about, this tight animation based combat. And so every time you do one of the core loops, you earn souls. And then you can spend that to make your character stronger. So as an XP currency, it's used to level up basically and put points into various stats. So you get to make some decisions about what stats you want to put your points into. And it's used for currency in shops. So anytime you want to buy something, an item like a consumable or anything like that, you also spend souls on that. So they use one currency for two kind of different actions. And so part of the tension in the decision making for a player is, do I want to spend this on a permanent upgrade, or do I want to spend this, this time that I've spent killing things on something that might be really helpful to me in one situation, but then it's going to be gone. Gil in Final Fantasy, or really any gold currency in any RPG, is usually used to buy consumable items or equipment. But again, there you're still making decisions. Do I want to buy a potion that's going to help me in a boss fight, or do I want to buy a sword that's going to make me stronger forever? And it's not always cut and dry. I mean, sometimes you don't have enough to buy the sword. You have to decide, do I want to save up, or do I want to just get the thing that's going to get me there faster so I can make more progression and come back later? In Breath of the Wild, there are limited slots for weapons, which are consumable themselves. So you could consider the weapons an economy type. So Korok seeds, which are a thing that you can find by finding secrets in the world, those are consumed in order to buy permanent slots in which to hold more of these consumable weapons. So this forms a little loop of spending and earning, where you are rewarded for exploring the world, which again is one of Breath of the Wild's pillars, is sort of exploration in this vast world. You're rewarded for exploring by finding Korok seeds, which are sort of secretly placed, and then you can spend those to get a permanently larger pool of weapons to choose from for various situations when you're in combat. And then in Pokemon, you can earn by catching Pokemon and spend by trading with other people, or grinding them into candy, or whatever it is that you're doing with them. So you can see that in these examples, currency is not always a super cut and dry system. Sometimes it's actually the interaction of two different systems. And sometimes it's an interaction between a few kind of key decisions that a player gets to make. But that friction, that decision making, that's what actually makes experiences enjoyable for people. So this is really fun way to kind of amp up the pressure in a game. and make players feel like they're making, meaningful decisions. And you can also have multiple economies. So you can have economies to suit different kinds of players. So there is this was like a paper that was written a while back of how to categorize players. And this is this categorized system of explorers, achievers, socializers, and killers. This is used in a lot of different like game design academia to talk about different kinds of players. So players can be categorized by their most valued in-game activity. So explorers enjoy discovering areas, going through the narrative, learning about hidden places. Achievers prefer to gain points, levels, equipment, and other concrete measurements of success in a game. Socializers enjoy the game's communicative facilities and apply the role-playing that these engender, so they like the social aspect. And killers thrive on competition with other players and prefer fighting, usually players over bots. So you can imagine, especially for a game like an MMO, where you're expecting a lot of different kinds of people to come in and play and a lot of people to want to find their niche with that game, you can have multiple economies that suit whatever you think that your different key players are going to need. So this can be a way to increase the meaningful choice in the game, which feels super fun and engaging. So I'm playing a lot of FF14 right now, and if I had to define myself, I would say I fall in the first three groups more strongly than the last one. So I'm more of an explorer, achiever, and socializer. In fact, I'd say I'm mostly an explorer and an achiever. And so there are definitely like aspects of that game that are for me. Like I can, open up new maps, and I can go on treasure hunts, and I can earn weekly achievements and that sort of thing, which gets me XP, which helps me level up, which of course is always like a big deal in MMOs. But there's also this whole, other system for playing with other people, and there are rewards that are built around that. There's rewards for PvP, which I never do, but there's some people who swear by it, right? PvP being player versus player, as opposed to player versus environment. And then finally, the economy that all games have built in is time. All players must spend time to play the game and earn progression, right? And so when you plot your economic systems, or when you're like deciding on what these other currency and economic systems are going to be in your game, you can put time on the y-axis, and you can make a chart kind of like this. So this is a time versus progression chart. And in this type of graph, you can look at different economies and decide roughly how they'll progress. So they could be like a sort of linear progression or an exponential progression, where you kind of start out slow and then eventually it becomes like quite large moment to moment. So the key is that the different ways of achieving the same progression should take roughly the same amount of time to complete. So, by the time, whatever it is here, 4,000 minutes have passed, the character may have they've earned a certain number of coins, they may have ground out a certain number of levels, or explored new areas for experience, find a certain number of chests, encounter a certain number of monsters, etc. And you can see how these different progression systems can be plotted differently. So coins may be quite linear. This is something that you're going to find if you were to like divide the number of coins by the number of minutes that you've been playing. It's always going to be the same, like maybe 2 coins per minute or something like that. But if you divide the number of times you've leveled up by the number of time, or the amount of time that you've played, that number is going to keep going up. So maybe as you keep going along, you get levels faster and faster, or maybe it's the other way, where they get slower and slower as you go along. If you were to study a game like Diablo, for example, which has probably all of these different progressions in them, you could probably make a chart like this for yourself, just based on the games that are using these kinds of systems. So this is the beginning of creating game balance, which is going to be important as well for your mechanics.